Okay, hey, welcome, my friends, to It's Time for You to Rewrite Your Life show. Now, my hope for the show is to help you find passion and vision, and we can find other words for those like direction and purpose for moving forward in your life because the new era is here. It's called now, by the way, and it's time to awake and evolve our awareness, our consciousness, and I found personally that that's a lot easier with the right mentors. And so Moira and I were talking about how life is a gift, generally speaking, and specifically how everything in life is a gift. And that's one thing we definitely collaborated on. Can you expound on that, Moira?
Absolutely. So I personally, I'm a little bit wary when I say that to people because it's hard. So I know for myself that I have lived through chapters in my life where if somebody said, this tough patch you're going through, this chaos and discombobulation and suffer and trauma and turmoil is a gift. If somebody said that to me at certain chapters, I'd have said, I don't know who you are, where you come from, but you're a bit alien here. So here's the thing is that where I do firmly believe that absolutely everything in life is a gift, I also know that there are times where that's actually all you can hold on to. That in chaos or in crisis, sometimes we just need to take one step and the next step and the next step and trust that the only reason you're in there or in that situation or that whatever the suffering is that it's for your highest good that you as a soul navigated yourself into this and that perhaps it's by going through it that you then kind of go, okay, now I get it. Now I see the gift. The learning that I got from that, the exposure I got from that, the awareness, the wisdom, do you know what I mean? So that's why I'm saying is that I'm walking that gently.
I think we're all walking it. Growing our soul is a journey.
Hmm.
It's an experience. And if it wasn't, if we had reached it, we probably wouldn't be here.
It would be done. Yeah.
Perhaps. I remember sitting in Oak Creek above Sedona with Ilchi Lee, the leader of the International Santao, who I was very grateful to have worked with. And he looked up creek at all our students and he looked over at me and he said in Korean, "Do you think it helps you to know me? Do you think it helps you to be with me?" He says, "It doesn't help you to know me or to be with me. You have to do your own work. You have to grow your own soul."
Mhm.
And, I was experiencing a lot of doubt at that point in my life. But I know the truth when I hear it, don't you, my friends? Know the truth when you
Absolutely.
hear the truth. And so when we talk about, we were talking, Moira, about everything in our life is a gift. And yeah, when I was, let me see, 40 something years ago, when I was sitting in prison, if somebody told me I was being gifted
Hmm.
and watching men die and watching men being abused, and nothing I can do about it because I can't get through those steel bars. Um, I would have said, "Yeah, you are alien here in telling me this is a gift." But it was a gift because, and I'm very grateful for it. For one, if I look back at that after I did the work with my mentor, Peter Sage, and looked back at all those things in my life that were holding me back, and I look at that and I look at the fact that I was working in the boatyards when that happened, when I was attacked, when I felt forced to defend myself, and I killed a man and injured another and was sent to prison. And before a couple of years later, 4 years later, actually, I was released. I was demanded, my trial was thrown out. The governor demanded my release. And I probably would have died in the boatyards. I have lung problems now from breathing in fiberglass. This is just one example, folks, just one example of many things I'm grateful for that I went to prison. Now, sometimes I go to Moira, I'll go to women's shelters and I'll talk to them about about how to deal with their past. And that's very hard to talk to a woman. And I know there's nobody here that hasn't had some strife in their life, some abuse or whatever, that I know personally anyway. It's hard for to look at a woman and tell them they don't always accept that. They're not ready to accept what has happened. Um, but on that note, I would like you to talk to us, Moira, about why, and how do you say that life is a gift and everything that happens is a gift?
Is to keep coming back to the sense of ease and peace. Like somebody who is reliving or still working through some form of trauma or abuse, I'm not going to say to them, life is a gift. I would never do that. But look at where's the where's the sense of ease or comfort that can be found? And sometimes it's nothing. Sometimes it's can we just look at soothing your nervous system, breathing into the present moment, doing tactile exercises to really anchor you in the present moment. Because oftentimes people who have gone through trauma, they're going to be, I keep coming up to this word. I keep being saying it's we're animating it again. We're reanimating. So when we get caught by telling a story and telling a story and telling a story, maybe we just need to stop telling that story to sort of go, oh, wait, that was then, this is now. And what can I do? So I'm going to share a wee example from my trauma story is that I was in a cult for 2 years. When I would be 18 when I did that. And in that, I had to be where I was told, speak when I was spoken to, not do anything out of line. I actually had to disconnect completely from my family because the deal was you either brought your family in with you or they would help you cut ties. What kind of got people into this cult was that it was to save the planet, to save and heal. And I am a natural healer, and so it's like this is my mission. I'm signing up. So 2 years later, I got out. It's quite a story of how I got out, but I did. However, in there, you're always indoctrinated that if you leave, you will die. There's no there is no negotiation. You leave this group and the protection and the way you were told how to be, you would die. So I got out and then I got mortally ill. I actually was in hospital and had to have an 11-hour surgery to save my life. So you can imagine what went on in my head. Like, oh my God, they're right. 100%, they were right. I should never have escaped or got out. So fast forward to now, I can tell you the story. I have no attachment to the emotion. I have really dealt with and healed, and I totally know and understand why I did what I did. And the gifts, there are massive gifts in everything that I went through. But it actually took almost 20 years for me to actually realize it after the fact. And that's where I'm coming from is that, yeah, it was 100% it was a gift. But it took that amount of processing, that amount of telling myself the truth. You know, the first probably 5 to even 10 years, I wouldn't even speak it out loud. Speaking it out loud was the way to open, to surrender to I created this. I did get some really amazing good out of it, and I can't stuff it down and say, "Oh gosh," because you know I lived in Britain at this time. And people just didn't go around and say, "Oh, reason there's a big chunk missing on my resume is because I was in a cult." Just, just doesn't
I get
fly.
that.
But that's why I'm saying is that it's easy to sit in a really good, safe, grounded place and say everything's a gift. And so to your question, Raphael, is that even people who have experienced the most horrible trauma and suffering, it takes time. It takes time and it takes, like I said, that's a really big part that kind of informs the work that I do, is that sometimes I have to just teach you how to soothe your nervous system and keep soothing your nervous system, and don't get into any dialogue about what about this and how long do I have to, doesn't matter. Soothe your nervous system. And that can be such a huge range of different things. It can be just simply trying out different breathing techniques. It can be, being tactile with yourself, giving yourself big hugs every day before you get out of bed, showing up for yourself. But once we can get ourselves into a more calm place, that's when we can start to say, oh, look, I now have this awareness or this capacity or this resilience. Because sometimes that's the other part. Wouldn't you say that that's another piece around the gifts that we can accumulate, is sometimes it's just resilience.
Did you say resilient?
Resilience.
Could you explain that a little bit?
Well, the thing is that there is turmoil and chaos and discombobulation in this planet. And so sometimes in order to be resilient to it, we need to go through trauma to then say, yes, there is suffering. I don't need to go into suffering to know that there's suffering there. So the gift is I have had some real felt experiences to then become more resilient, that I'm not going to go, it's a wee bit like I just talked to you about really focusing on the calming the nervous system. If I didn't do my work and I hadn't become resilient, then somebody coming and telling me a story of their suffering or their discombobulation. P.S. I really like that word, by the
Yes, I
way.
noticed. I
I
love
use it
it.
a lot. I use it a lot. But if they're sitting there and then I get triggered or go down into it with them, I'm not doing anybody any good, them or me.
Hmm.
So that's what I mean about resilience, is that I can listen and hold space for another person's suffering or pain and be with it and just keep my hand out to say, when you're ready, my hand is here, or this idea is here. But it can't, they can't leap out of their suffering or their pain until they're ready to say, okay, I surrender and step up.
Right. So it's like being objective about something. I call
Mm,
it the helicopter view.
mhm.
I get out of my truck or at Safeway or whatever, and somebody's yelling at me, which hasn't happened recently, by the way, for quite a while, about
Good.
maybe I ran over their pet sock or something. I don't know. And I didn't used to be this way. I used to engage, but now
Mm,
I call it a helicopter view. I'm watching the game from up here and being objective and analyzing it and seeing where the value is, where the gift is. And so I'm a lot calmer than I used to be. But yes, it does help to I brought in some Sedona Red Rock in front of our house for the walkway. And so I go out every morning when I send Brenda off to work and I walk barefoot on the rock. And we're on a large basalt lava flow shelf on the hill here where a house is. But so I ground myself. And I used
mm,
to do that with seizure patients, which I worked with quite a bit, was grounding ourselves and being present and breathing techniques. And
mhm,
so that's definitely what I call our practice or my practice is breathing, grounding, body tapping. If you have, like allergies, um, there's different acupressure points. Everything I learned from the Koreans, thank you so much,
mhm.
which is a prerequisite but being detached from your emotions, we're not our emotions. I was always told when I was working at Mago retreat with the South Koreans that our mind is ours, but it's not us. We must control our mind or it's going to rule us. Our body is ours, but it's not us. It's ours to master. So I guess what we're talking about is self mastery here, mastering our emotions and being in the moment, being present. As Leonard Jacobson would say, I did a podcast with him a couple of years ago. He's a being present expert. I think we're all being present experts. We spent a lot of time being present, right, Moira? Being in the
Absolutely.
now.
Being in the now. But to circle back to your piece about emotions is my philosophy about emotions. I completely agree with you. We are not emotions, but emotions are also a gift.
Yes.
And and emotions actually demand our respect. They're not just subtly, quietly saying, "Hey, can you feel me?" They're saying, "Feel me."
Hmm.
Like, really feel me. Now, that's easy to do if those feelings are excitement and ecstasy and joy and happiness and right, the ones that are up here at the top. But if it's feel me, feel hopelessness, helplessness, anger, anxiety, is like, no, nope, nope, nope. Our head might sort of go, oh, no, 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 no. Actually, I was having a conversation with a client before we started here that she has herself wired that it turns out now that it's for all emotions, whether they're good or bad. She's saying, okay, you're allowed to feel this for 2 to 3 minutes, and then you're out
Right.
without allowing the wave to be ridden. So, what I mean by that, when I'm saying that an emotion demands your respect, it's about saying, okay, there is hopelessness in me, or there is anger in me, or there is upset in me, there's discombobulation in me. There, I'm having this experience. Now, what can I do? Well, maybe all I can do is tell myself this is what I'm feeling and breathe and keep coming back to the breath, knowing that if I stay present, I've told myself the truth about what I'm feeling, and I stay present, the feeling will leave. The feeling kind of goes, okay, you held me, you respected me. And sometimes we can actually get a sense of, oh, now I know why that happened. It's because I forgot to do such and such over here, or because I said no to this and I should have said yes. And right. So there's guidance in there, but you can only receive the guidance if you're willing to sit in. Sometimes they're a wee bit uncomfortable. And that's why doing something tactile, I actually will do this a lot. Hands over your heart, tactile. This helps hugely for a couple of reasons. One is because physical touch helps you stay here because your awareness all goes here. You've just touched this. But this is accessing your limbic system, which is where we start to soothe ourselves. This is nervous soothing. So you can just kind of, I love your dog, just totally attentive. But so it's that way helps you just be in that. And then even if it's, say it's anxiety or worry, it's like, okay, but I'm also showing up for myself to comfort. And that's where you can kind of get into the, oh, I was creating worst case scenario and I don't need to, because being in this present moment, I realize I have everything I need. Right. So it's a bit of a dance. And that's how come I like to just bring that into the conversation that emotions are gifts too.
Yes,
And they're
and that's what we teach our people as coaches. Is
mm,
I teach what I was taught is you have to accept and experience the emotion for a minimum of 60 to 90 seconds minimum. And I like to tell people, be curious about it. Where is this emotion reside in my body? Is it in my head? Is it in my heart? Where is it? That's a great idea, touching yourself on your chest like that, and
Mhm.
then be curious about it and experience the emotion, because I think we all have experienced suppressing emotions for many years. I know I did.
Yeah.
When my partner Anna died, my assistant in 2017, um, some of my coaches were pointing out that I can't mention Anna's name without bursting into tears. And
Mhm.
so I was suppressing the emotion grief because I just did not care to feel grief.
Mhm.
And so when I finally did experience it, I'm detached from the emotion now. And then I got curious about where it was in my body. It was in my heart. I was curious about why I was experiencing the emotion because I was too attached to it. I was too attached to my friend Anna. And I had to realize that I don't own anybody. We don't own our children. We don't own our family. They have their own soul. That's a perspective, and they're on their own journey. We have no control over anybody. And so just experiencing the emotion of anger, that's huge, right?
Yeah.
Especially men don't get, when I do speaker meetings, men don't get that anger is a secondary emotion, and it really comes from fear. So if you look at the anger, why am I angry? Why am I angry at that guy? Because we're afraid of losing some form of control. Some We need to accept that we are not in control of others, and what they do has nothing to do with us. What they do to us doesn't have anything to do with us. It's them, and that's certainly a perspective as well. But for example, I was talking to some police officers at a friend's house who is a police officer, retired, or gone into a different business, and I was telling them how anger was a secondary emotion. It comes from fear, always. And the one of the policemen, up front, said, I'm not afraid of somebody who's abusing their child. It pisses me off. It makes me angry when they abuse children. People abuse children. I'm not afraid. I go, yes, you are. Think about it. You're afraid that you cannot protect the child. You're afraid that you're holding on to the control, that you cannot protect the child that is not there in front of you. And he goes like, well, I okay. So experiencing the emotion, but getting curious about it is really important. And it's so important for us to let those things go, to release them. And then we might even be able to experience joy because of the
Right.
release.
But at the same time, so back to your example about anger,
Mhm.
I think it's really, really important to tell yourself the truth. There is anger and sit with it until it's ready to be lifted and say what's underneath.
Right.
I work with a lot of clients who have cancer. So they'll get really angry. They're angry at themselves, at the system, at the doctors, at the you name it. And so they have to sit there with it. I encourage people to sit with that anger. And sometimes, and what I mean by sitting with anger, sometimes it means writing it out. Sometimes it means stamping your feet and screaming, punching a pillow, shaking things off. Really allow the felt sense of that anger, because it's that way that then you get the opening of like, oh, there it is. And it's not always fear. It can sometimes be something that you've missed. It can be that you betrayed yourself in some form. You let yourself down. You allowed yourself to get carried away to somebody else's belief system and then cap it with anger. But it's by allowing yourself the felt sense of it to then go, okay, I know that I'm not going to stay here. And so I use things like inner dialoguing and tapping. I like doing EFT tapping, emotion freedom technique tapping. That one in itself is a beautiful way to allow you to name and honor the emotion, but not identify overly with it, to see it as a gift.
Right.
This is teaching me something. This is informing me of something. And it can be that I need to go layer to layer to layer, because even in those the examples that I'm saying about people with cancer, it can be fear and then anger and then fear and then anger and fear and anger, and then underneath it's all hopeless. So they got to keep coming, 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 coming to, okay, now what can I do? Well, maybe I can just sit and tap and breathe and do some more comforting and do some more journaling and treating myself like the sacred being that's been screaming at me all this time to sit with, right?
Yeah, I love what you said about to disidentify yourself from the emotion. We're not
Yeah,
the emotion.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah, that's why I've said this before too, is that it's very, very important to be mindful of that I am statement. Because whatever word or idea comes right after I am magnifies a thousandfold.
Mhm.
And so if I say I'm angry, what did I just do?
You hung a
Kind
label
of,
on yourself.
well, I hung a label on myself, but I'm actually creating an awful lot more
Yes,
of it. Whereas if I'm having the experience of anger, then there's this buffer. It's like, oh, it's an experience that can actually come in and flow out. Because now I'm the one that's witnessing it, having this experiencing it, and able to flow. And I believe that when we claim the experience, we realize it's a gift, it's informing us of something, and we get to flow. And to your point, Raphael, I think that the more we can flow with those, the more we will actually climb that ladder of the emotional scale. And all of a sudden, before
absolutely.
you know it, you've got a big grin on your face and you're going, wow, look how awesome this space is.
Yeah, people tell me I smile a lot more than I used to. Oh my gosh. What we're talking about here is doing the work. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. That's so important. And I'm so glad you walked us through that, the releasing, accepting, looking at and releasing the emotion, but experiencing it. It's so important to move on, like you
Mhm.
say. The whole thing about life is a gift. I just want to share something I'm sure I've shared before. The reason why I wrote my first book, It's Time for You to Rewrite Your Life, like it says on the banner back there. um, the quick story, which I'm sure some of you have heard, and it has to do with life as a gift, is not this woman, but another woman appeared to me in my yoga room one day. I got out of the cot where I had taken a nap, and my feet hit the wooden floor, and I had guests in the house, and they were taking naps. It was actually very early in the morning, and we had been sleeping. And I got up and I took a couple of steps across the floor, and there's a woman standing in front of me, and she was looking not at me. I couldn't see her face. She was like looking at a clipboard or something. And she said, "It's time for you to rewrite your life." And then she just kind of nodded and she turned and started to walk away and faded away. I'm like, okay, who was that? And what does that mean? And I checked on everybody in the house and I checked outside to make sure we weren't being visited, which we had been. And so I asked for clarity later. I was challenged by Jennifer Rafflower in New York during a summit to ask for clarity about a year later. And I did. She says it may take a week or a month, but you'll get an answer. I called her back in 25 minutes, Moira, my friends, and I said, I know exactly what she means. I asked for clarity. So it really helps to ask. I've been told that by the angels, and they don't have wings, by the way, mine don't. And I asked for clarity. What it meant was for us, for me, to go back in our life and look at all the joys, the birth of my daughter Iris, the tragedies, being sent to prison, losing friends, having a friend die in my arms, and to not look at them as joys and tragedies, but as events in our journey, as experiences, and to take that forward. And that is who we are today. I have been in a room of gentlemen over in the meditation center that I ran in Sedona, and some guy said he was kind of going on and crying about events in his life. And I said, we've all had trouble. We've all had strife. We've all had tragedies in our life. And you know what's really strange? Every other guy in that room, there's about five guys there, they all said, well, I haven't had any trouble. No, I've had a pretty good life. No, I'm not, I don't know. It's not me. And so, denial is not just a river. But those people who have had a lot of trouble, a lot of strife in their life, when they get through it and they do the work that Moira was talking about, they become a lot stronger than the people around them who have not done the work, who have not had the trouble, who have not had the experience. We can call them old souls, we can call them what we want, but they're experienced people and they become strong. So, those, my friends that are here now that I'm sitting with who have had awful things happen to them at some point, like I have, then I want to tell you, I salute you. You are the chieftains. You have so much to offer the world. You are stronger than those who cannot deal with it. You heard that saying, right, Moira? God only gives us as much as we can deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and that to me is one of the fundamental underpinnings of the idea of realizing that everything's a gift. Because even in traumatic experiences, we might say, God, universe, source only gives you what you can deal with. Sometimes that just feels so insurmountable. Like, what do you mean I can deal with this? But but that's what I was saying is that if we can really make that a guiding principle, that will help you start to see, oh, now I get how come I, made that choice, or I was in that abusive relationship, or because I was working through this. And I, as a soul, did say, yep, count me in. I'm in there. But our human thinking, which we kind of get into this forgetfulness that, oh, no, no, I didn't create this chaos and this form of suffering. I didn't. No, no way. But you did. But you did. And it sometimes means you have to sit and sometimes you do have to go sailing down that denial river. Sailing down denial until you kind of go, wait, 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 I don't need to be in this flow. I can actually claim. And this is a rewrite your life too, right? How long? Actually, this is a really interesting example to illustrate my point. Many years ago, I worked with this client, and I think I worked with him for about a year and a half. He was in an abusive relationship, like really abusive. And he would come into my office and I had a coaching program with him. So I'd see him twice a month, every month for, like I said, a year and a half. And I learned a lot of swear words for him that I didn't ever know existed because that's what he would do. He'd come into my office and guess what happened this time and this and this and she treated me this way and she hit me this way and did. And so then I'd say to him, how long are you willing to keep telling this story? That's all I would say. Oh, it's not, no, she has to change. She has to stop doing this. No. Okay. And he would come in and that is all I would say to him. How long do you need to keep telling that story before you realize you can change it? And one day, actually, it was a Sunday. I don't work on a Sunday, but on a Sunday, he phoned me and he said, this is the day I'm rewriting the story. He realized that of course he could keep telling the same story, but until he learned to put him first and say, that person doesn't exist anymore. And that's when everything turned out for the best for him. In fact, it was funny because he ended up tripling his income without even doing anything because he was stuck in this sort of contract mode of everything was stuck. Everything was stuck in his life. And then just by doing this one piece of, yeah, I'm not this person that puts up with being talked to and being treated and being beaten. He was being beaten, which, and the interesting part of this was because it was the man. It's the man telling me the story, right? Which then has a whole bunch of stigma, like what will people think? And people, big, strong, tough men don't have this kind of thing. And so that's why it was being all buried with him. But that was my constant, is to wake him up. And to the point was, it's going to carry on as long as you want to keep telling that story.
I was having a conversation down in Phoenix with I forget his name. He's some hip hop guy, and he was telling us that when he's working with somebody, he lets them tell the story once, and then it's moving to the solution, and that's it.
Well, I actually say to people too that you can tell me your story if you want to. But because you've come to me, it means we're going to start re-scripting immediately. So it's a choice. Because oftentimes we find that we actually don't even need the story. We think we do, but we don't.
Right. Yeah.
It's about just staying present. Who's here? Who is this being that's shown up right now? How do you feel?
Right. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that was me for years. Anybody relate to this? Just me holding on to stories, telling the same old stories. It's funny. I'm sure Kasha can relate to this. Last year, I was helping out a friend, and I had her three horses here. And some horses, I love horses because they're such spiritual beings, and they're always right here, right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I was walking down the hill, and there's Judy and Raven and Laddie, and Judy looks up at me and says to the other two, "Who's he showing up as today?" And then Raven looks up. He's a big stallion, and he looks up from the feed bin, and hay's dripping out of his mouth. He looks at me. He says, "Don't bring that stuff down here with you." Because they could tell I was just come out of my office and I was in my head. And Laddie's standing in the back looking right at me in the eye, and he says, "The only moment is now. We need you to be here." I'm
Mm-hmm.
so grateful to them, and that's why right now we do injured horse rescue. We've got a very crippled, very beautiful mare who can hardly walk, who has been horribly abused, and we've got a half-blind Appaloosa pony who's going blind, and they are just the best friends. They just, stumble around together, and I can't really help them a lot, but it's important to me that I just let them be horses. And I do have a place where they can roam and be free and have a better experience. That's all mindfulness. That's for another show. But helping people, we can help people if we've been there, right, Moira?
Absolutely. But it's we can help people if we've been there, but we also need to keep doing our work
Mhm.
because we are never done. If we're sitting here talking, none of us are done. We're we are done. I remember one time that I knew somebody who said, "Oh, my work's done. I don't have anything more to do." I beg to differ. Turned out that she had been misguided a little bit of the, oh, all you have to do is learn this and learn this and learn this, and then you're done. I actually really do believe that if we're in human form, we ain't done. There's going to be more. And perhaps it will be that you're still animating past stories, or that you're not allowing yourself into the full depth of an emotion, or that you're maybe missing that everything is by your design and it is a gift. And it's different nuances of it. But it's also so important. You just said about mindfulness. I think it's so important to show up for yourself, to yourself, with compassion, with kindness. Oh, goody, what do I get to discover today?
Mhm.
I had a conversation with somebody yesterday. She's trying to sell me into a marketing program. And she was saying we were talking about evolution and learning about ourselves and yeah, evolving. And so she said, I get so, so angry at myself when I see something come back up in myself that I thought I dealt with. I get so angry with myself. And she was saying it with such like fervor, like so angry. And I so I said to her, how would it be if you looked at the next time something like that happens, if you say, oh goody, what else am I going to discover now? And she looked at me and said, wow, I never thought of that. I said, well, the only reason it keeps coming back up is because you haven't got all the different nuances and it's fun. Could it be fun to just go, oh, wow, look, I need to go in and unpack this a little bit more. There's obviously something more of a gift that I haven't quite unwrapped yet. So that's the other part too, is to not get into a sense of I should be somewhere. You
Right.
know, I do a lot of work on Insight Timer as a meditation app. And we get really into, actually, I did a session with them this morning. We get really into telling yourself the truth about what you're feeling. And oftentimes, mind you, the people that follow me, they kind of got the memo now. But there's, there's certain emotions that I shouldn't be feeling because I'm a spiritual being. I'm spiritual. I meditate. I do breathing techniques. I'm mindful. So therefore I shouldn't. And so it's about really firing all that kind of dialogue. It's like, no, we get to come in and feel our feelings and flow. And they are gifts. And it's a spiral. You know, actually, I think of
Yeah.
numerology in this conversation too, that we live our lives in this form in spirals. It's upward spirals of 9-year circuits. And 9 year, and then we reset. So therefore, if you think about that, at year one, that's when we start things that we're going to be working on for the next 9 years. So if you think about me at a young age, say in my childhood, I'm at a 1 year, and then 10 years later, I'm at a one again. I may need to start planting similar seeds or start doing things similar again, but it's at a different level because it's this upward spiral. So you never, even if a person thinks, oh, I'm repeating this same pattern, you're not, because you're different.
Right.
You, so if you did something the same today that you did yesterday or last week, it's not the same you that's doing it. You've evolved. You're different. So that's the other part of the gift, is to keep evolving and keep honoring and recognizing the progression and the growth and the evolution of this animating source in the experience, right?
Yeah, and I like to point out that's interesting. I like to point out a couple of things. Um, when I was working with Kane Minkus, he was talking about, he's going to teach us in spirals. We're going to learn in spirals. We're going to keep coming, but you might think we keep coming back to the same thing, but we're not.
Mm,
We're a different person. And that's important because one thing I noticed about working with groups, like Peter Sage's groups and others, Health Coast Institute, everything since I was screaming at you in 2019, Moira, why is this happening to me? Why are UFOs coming up to me? Why are angels visiting me? I
mm,
started going into training again. And one thing I noticed being in groups is that some people don't do the work.
mm,
Let's work on authenticity. Well, I think I'm a pretty authentic guy, and so on. And I see some people change and some people don't change that much and they don't get that much out of the program because they don't dig, they don't do the work.
mm.
Yeah, and I just want to ask you before I forget, tell me about Insight Timers. Is that every Thursday that you do that?
Yeah, yeah, every Thursday morning at 9:30 Eastern.
9:30 Eastern. Oh, I will. And how do we connect with that, Moira?
Um, I actually on Facebook I usually put a wee reminder and it has a link. That link is just for that
Right.
one session. But you could also go on Insight Timer, like you need to download it to your phone or your device, search for my name, and then if you follow me, you get notified every time a live session is booked. So that's two ways of being in the know for them.
Yeah, I think that shows up on my Facebook. One of the problems I have with Facebook is too many people put their birthdays on there. So I get hundreds of happy birthdays to Joe and Sally and Alice. And so I took my birthday off the Facebook, and I'm not going to tell you how old I am. Um, and I'd like to, if I may, Moira, I'd like to open it up
Yeah,
to Tasha and Helene and Brian if you have
definitely.
questions.
Definitely.
And let's laser focus and who you're asking the question of, and a question that'll help you on your journey. Just unmute yourself. Helene, would you like to go?
So this was volunteer and now it's voluntold.
I don't have a question actually. I think when you were talking about the trauma and the horses having trauma and also the horses being very much in the present, then I thought, well, then it's a very good example to say how, although they're very much in the present, their body is still keeping the trauma. You know, when you rescue animals from, you know, this cat I have is not a rescue, but the previous one was a rescue. I had her for many years. She was still carrying the trauma. I had so much love for her, you know. There was broken something in her, and she wasn't telling herself the story again and again. So I really believe that in the same way that, you know, walls carry history, trees carry history, everything is alive. That's my perception of life anyway. You know, we are all on different frequencies, but we're all alive. So I think matter, bodies, plants, animals, humans, you know, like a book has been written, right, as well. You know, the body does keep the score,
Yeah.
whether we tell the story or not, you know. So I think there's, yeah, something there.
Mm.
Um,
It's like
but
the
that,
cellular imprint of the trauma.
yeah, and I do agree that probably we chose, you know, the flavor of this incarnation to come and experience some things and to work some lessons. And also it really spoke to me, Moira, when you said, well, it gives me resilience to have lived all these traumas, all these things, because when someone comes into my sphere, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not fazed by anything they're going to tell me. I'm not fazed. I can hold space for all of that. So in that light, it is a gift.
Mm-hmm.
But to say that that yeah, I agree, you know, also with, you know, whatever follows I am, probably, you know, I am that I am, right? Whatever follows
Yeah.
I am is going to make something more embodied. But to deny something, like you said, Maura, the fact of telling your story after, you know, having been in these 2 years, um, you know, kind of locked up in a way, right?
Mm-hmm.
To be able to say it was kind of releasing it at the same time. So it was telling the story that made it free as well. So I suppose what I'm saying is that, as always, we can say something and the opposite is completely true at the same time, you know.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, it's all beautiful, interesting. So yeah, I had no question, but yeah, lots of reflection in my, you
I
know,
like that.
I
being.
want to salute you for your awareness about trees, the species, all that they are alive. When I was a little boy, my father, who's a very spiritual man, in one part of him, he said that all things have a soul. All plants, animals have souls. And I go, what about rocks? He says, yes, rocks have a soul. I go, well, I go, Father, what do rocks think about? And he said, whatever rocks think about. I was like, oh, okay. And I see the trees as I drive. I see the trees as my friend. I see him
Mm.
waving in the wind, and I wave back to him. That's beautiful. And I'd also I like the concept that was shared with me about I am full stop. If we can get to the part that point in our life where we've
I am.
experienced our emotions, we've expressed them, we've turned them into joy, and we say, I am.
Mm.
Here I am. Thank you. Does anybody else have a question? I'm sitting here practicing patience. So it's nice.
I'm just gonna say it's been interesting seeing everybody, but I'm going to be taking off here. I'm gonna lose you guys. So I'm glad to meet everybody, and I enjoyed this. Talk to you soon.
It's good to see you again, Brian. You take care.
Take care. Bye.
You know, when I saw Brian Reed's name, I didn't know that was one of my fellow EMF, of which there are a lot of us. Kasha, do you have any questions?
I'm just grateful to be here. My dog is having my dog gets a little dysregulated when she's an old dog, so she's a little barky. So I'm co-regulating with my dog a lot, which is making me distracted because she's woofing a lot. And I'm a little sound sensitive, so I get jumpy when she's woofy. So it's actually a really great meditative practice for me because I have to deepen into my own calm. But it doesn't make me very good at asking questions. But it's really great to talk to, I mean, to hear you guys. And yeah, so thank you so much. I'm really glad to be here and be hearing people talk on spiritual and emotional things, which I really value. So thank you.
Well, it's good to
Thank
finally
you.
see you, Kasha, because you've been threatening to come here for a couple of years and bring your horse.
Yeah, I still would like to visit sometime if you're up for it.
Well, we're
I
here.
love your work, and I came because I believe in the spiritual connection I felt with you and everything you're doing. I just really support your work and value it. So and I'm far enough away I can't drive out easy to you. So I love that I can hear your thoughts on, through the internet, and Moira is amazing. So
Yes, she is.
and incidentally I have a poem titled Moira. So
Okay.
and it's one of my favorites that I've written.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We hear
And,
it.
and how did you come up with that title, Kasha?
Well, actually, I'm on this journey out west right now, but when I was still in my home state and working on poetry, I ended up writing poetry that was made out of other things. So I was using all of the headings in my email inbox to write poems from.
Mm.
And they end up being like treasure maps to my future life. Like they're poems from my past self. And after this meeting, I will go reread Moira, and there's no doubt that like that poem and the fact that that's your name and that all these things are connected in this wild way. And I guess that explains part of why I'm really happy to be here, because in the straight world, if you like write poems to your future self out of email headings, it's not, people look at you like, what are you talking about? But I know you guys understand.
Totally. I love that. I love that. It'd be awesome to know what the synchronicity is there for you, that informs for you. That's beautiful.
And in closing, so to speak, for me anyway, I just like to say that in the past couple of years, I've been working with Peter Sage's and his trainers and all my buddies that I've met. Some of them are speakers in our upcoming live shows with special guests like Moira here. And one thing I'm truly grateful for and feel this sense of joy is that I've discovered that everything that happens in life, including this second right now, is a gift. It's either um, yeah, I've talked about in the past, I've said everything that happened to us is a lesson. And I've had like other psychics and people I've done shows with tell me, well, I used to think that too, but you know what? They're just words. We put different words to whatever perspective we had. But for me, everything is is a test, is a lesson, is an example. I guess comprehensively, every single thing I see now with some joy is an experience, and it's helping me grow my soul. I'm experiencing it. And if we notice that, then I think we can get a lot more out of life. And I mean, even the most mundane things. For example, like I'm not a real fast driver. I used to be. I think I'm pretty sure I flipped a car around at 135 miles an hour when I was a kid. So I try not to get too mad at the kids out there. Because my friends, when I do that, my friends tell me you were the worst when you were, racing Mustangs. But I'm a lot more mindful now. But somebody, I guess I was driving too slow, and somebody passed me the other day, and they honked their horn, and they told me, "You're number one." Guess which finger they were using, and I was happy. I looked at them and I smiled and I waved, and I thought, I am so glad I'm not you. I'm so glad I don't live there anymore. So everything is a lesson. It's like you said before, Moira, there's times when I've been angry at myself because I'm not doing better, because I'm not treating people better, because I'm not loving and respecting myself more, which is so key. And then I'm at the point now where I get these little lessons like, hi, I'm glad I'm, yeah, I told this one guy was yelling at me over or arguing about something at the gym, and I told him, you need bigger problems. If this little thing worries you, you need bigger problems, because he was chewing out some other guy for being on his cell phone or something. So everything I've noticed, everything that happens, like right now, I'm getting a little message that says, Raphael, patience, you need to learn to listen more. Right, Moira?
We've talked about, so I think you and I had a wee bit of a conversation in this regard that this idea of lessons, I'm very wary of that one because I don't see them as lessons. I see them as gifts. The reason being is oftentimes if you have to learn a lesson, it's because you're doing something wrong.
Right.
And the truth is you never are. Nobody is doing anything wrong. There's different levels of awareness. But for any of us to ever go, oh gosh, look, I needed that lesson, that's bonking you on the head because I didn't know better. I cringe when I see people doing that. It's like, no, thanks. And the way you were describing that felt much more like a gift than a lesson. That it was like, yeah, see ya.
Yeah, thank you. We've had that talk
We
before,
did.
and I appreciate that. Um, and that's really important when we look at the past to somebody who has, we felt had abused us, and we look and we say, well, how is that a gift? How is what he, she, they doing is not wrong? I have an analogy for that, and I hope this is comprehensive to where it fits any situation. I call it the hiking path. If I get off work in Sedona, if I get out from teaching a yoga or Tai Chi class at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I go hiking up the beautiful, and I go down these beautiful red rock trails, and I go off the trail because I want to experience where a man has, I'm an off the trail kind of guy. I want to see the rock. I want to see the trees. I want to see the blue sky and the white clouds and the green earth. And it's just so beautiful. And after I've been there for hiking for a couple of hours, I'm in a different state. Now, there's maybe my friend I was going to meet, Frank, he gets off work at 5 o'clock. And then he meets me at some trail somewhere, and he hasn't been on the trail for a couple hours. He just got there, and he's still up here going, I can't believe my boss said that to me. I just got off work. I just need to hike. Okay, just leave me alone. They haven't been on the trail as long as us. We're not different. A 5-year-old's not better than a 60-year-old. A 60-year-old's not better than a 5-year-old. They're just in different places. So wherever somebody is in their life, whatever they've done, that's just where they are. And if they've done something that we think is bad or is bad, then just be glad you're not them. And be glad that you got off work earlier. Okay. Yay. I hope that was helpful.
I want to put in another wee analogy for that one. In the UK, and Helene will know this, we have roundabouts, right? And I can think about roundabouts that have multiple exits.
Mhm.
But sometimes, and I remember I would have to do this, I don't know which exit I have to get to and what lane do I have to be in to get that. So I might have to do that roundabout umpteen times before I go, oh, there it is. Now I need to ease over into this lane so that I can get out here. That's okay. Other people will know exactly I'm in the right lane and off I go. So
They've
it's
done
just,
it 10, 20 times.
that's right. So it's the grand cosmic roundabout. Doesn't matter how many times you have to go around the roundabout, you will get to your exit.
I love it. Thank you. And with that, if you have anything more to add, Moira?
That was me. I just wanted to add that because you know me, I like to make people laugh, myself included.
I'm so glad I have friends that we make each other laugh. I'm so grateful for my friends, and I'm so grateful for Lean and Kasha for joining us today, and Brian. And have a wonderful now, everybody.
Absolutely.
And let's enjoy our gift and share our gift, okay?
Thank you for being. This was wonderful. Let's meet next month again. Yay.
Well, we'll be
Thank you so
meeting
much.
every other Thursday, every 2 weeks. I've got yeah, I think I've sent you a list of we've got Alina Chapman coming up and Adam Leonard, and I actually got my old friend Neil Donald Walsh coming in a couple of months, and Connie Habash, who is in California. She does nature retreats, and Holly Wharton, who is, I guess we call her a tree hugger. I was talking to Holly yesterday. She does communicating with trees, and I want to share nature and environment. How mindfulness to our environment is very critical for our race to survive at this point. I was telling Connie and Holly that I took a bunch of pictures of Brenda with her arms around a 40-foot saguaro cactus, like this, and saying why it's hard to be a tree hugger in Arizona. Thorns. I love you guys. I hope to see you in 2 Thursdays from now. Thank you,
Thank you,
Moira.
thank you, thank you. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.